Hello, and welcome to the Farmhouse Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, from The Farmhouse. We're a small-scale farm operation in the outskirts of Brooklyn, Wisconsin, interested in veggies, flowers, livestock, and honestly, whatever it is our family ventures into next. It's a learn-from-experiences kind of journey that we're on, and one that many other similar farm operations are on too. This podcast will bring you closer to South Central Wisconsin's small-scale farmers, as well as share some valuable stuff happening right here in our area. Let's talk a little bit about your small-scale operation, what you're into, and how it works for you. Happy you're joining us for this episode of the Farmhouse Podcast.
Just flames burning in your fireplace. I hear your voice, and it seems as if it was
All right, what's up? Here we go.
I wish it was all a dream.
I want to start this episode with a shout out to my wife, Erin, who experienced a health scare in the spring of 2024. After a roller coaster of emotions, never-ending appointments, lengthy and inconvenient treatments, and trying to find a new normal, she went through a challenging year, to say the least. But her resilience, paired with a positive prognosis, has set up a hopeful start to the new year, with an outlook on life to make sure to take advantage of each and every day. I'm incredibly lucky to have such a determined, persevering, loving, caring, and grounded wife, who is the backbone to our farmhouse family, keeping things upright, strong, and forward-moving. Here's to a more enjoyable 2025, jam-packed with positive experiences. Love you, babe. Episode 9 gives us a chance to hear about a tradition many Wisconsin families enjoy. One that happens in the fall when the leaves begin to change color, the days get a little cooler, and the apples and pumpkins are ready for the picking. I spent an afternoon during the off-season at Alpine Ridge Orchard just west of Brooklyn, Wisconsin, and sat down with the owners, Brandon and Jennifer. When I arrived, Brandon was out sifting harvested popcorn kernels to load into canisters that will be sold as Alpine Ridge popcorn this coming season at their orchard shop. He welcomed me into the beautiful outbuilding at the orchard that serves as their all-purpose facility, where we all sat down to chat. With a wood stove keeping us warm, the kids even jumped into the podcast to share some important details about the orchard experience. This episode didn't require a tour upon my arrival because this is the orchard that my family and I go to every fall. I'm familiar with the rows of fruit trees growing, the deer fence that surrounds the orchard, the pumpkins and veggies in the fields, the animals to visit, and of course the food truck that cranks out warm apple cider donuts and steaming hot cider. As a consumer at an orchard, we often think how lovely it must be to own a beautiful place like this. But in this episode, we hear some of the back-end operations that make it clear the amount of work that go into a business like Alpine Ridge. And while it definitely seems lovely to own an orchard, it comes with a heavy list of work that has to get done. We also get a chance to learn a bit about Brandon and Jennifer, their journey, and how they ended up owning and operating the orchard. After you listen to the episode, if you haven't checked out their place, it's worth a visit come apple season. As per usual, I've added a few links to some of the things mentioned in the podcast for those of you interested in exploring those topics further. Hope you enjoy episode 9 with Alpine Ridge Orchard. Welcome, Brandon and Jennifer. Thanks for having me out to your farm here. Can you start just by giving us a brief overview of the farm, so the location, where we are here, size, and kind of everything you have going on?
Sure. We're on about 45 acres. We've got 25 of woods, 20 of field. We've run about 3,600 apple trees, a few pear trees, lots of odds and ends, pumpkins.
We are located in Brooklyn, Wisconsin, off of Alpine Road.
I'm guessing that's where the name of the place kind of came.
Yeah, because technically we're on a ridge. The other side of the hill goes down. Right over there.
Awesome. And on the website, there are a handful of other things, like you do have animals here on the property, food. So you guys kind of dipped into the food market, selling food.
Yeah.
We do a concession trailer during season, so fresh apple cider donuts, turnovers, cider slushies, all kinds of goodies.
Hot cider during the colder months.
And what is the season, kind of start to finish?
We do about middle of August through at least the first weekend in November. And then we kind of see what we have for apples on how long we're going to go after that. But usually it's only on weekends after that.
Anything else in terms of kind of the brief overview? So you got acreage, and most of it's orchard, but you do have some field stuff going on too, like buildings. You have outbuildings here. You're sitting in this really awesome space. It's kind of your main one.
Yeah. Yep. We do a corn maze, so that's part of the field that we use. And then we rotate the crops from curvets or pumpkin squash and rotate it with the corn maze so that we keep the ground fresh for the pumpkins.
Awesome. And so just to kind of piggyback off of that, can you share a little bit about kind of the journey which brought you to kind of end up doing what you're doing here with this pretty big operation?
Sure. I mean, I think it goes back farther than the orchard itself. I've always worked in a factory paycheck to paycheck, and we started at a community garden down in Monroe, and like normal, broke, no money, and we kind of got into doing a little gardening, and I wanted to do some canning, and it's kind of just turned into, down there it was a little garden, then it turned into 100 tomato plants, making salsa, making pickles, and it was a way to save a couple bucks, and got into canning applesauce, and want to do some pie filling, and now we sit here with 3,600 plus trees.
I think that we also wanted our kids to know where stuff comes from. I do a lot of the field trips that come out here, so we do that during season. And if you ask a kid where a apple comes from, they just say the store.
Grocery store.
Yeah. So a lot of them, it's the first time that they've seen an apple tree. Mm-hmm. But it was important for our kids too to know where their food comes from, how you can raise it, that it's not just going to the store and purchasing something.
Sure. Yeah, that's really cool. And you two have kind of been together for this journey. But was it one of you than the other, or have you both been kind of?
It's back and forth.
Okay.
I mean, if, in the mix of all that, throw 3 kids into it.
Yeah.
So, days get busy. Some days it's too hot. Some days, we got to go home and cool down. But basically from the start.
Okay. And are you on the property full time?
Nope.
So this is just the business operation?
Just the business.
Gotcha.
We feel like we're here full time.
Yeah.
Because we work a lot.
Sure.
So even if he's at work, I'm here doing stuff and that. But it is a year round. A lot of people think that, you're just open during the season, but the work is all year round. Mm-hmm. And like right now, we're pruning, and that's going to take at least a couple months to prune all the trees.
Mm-hmm. So we'll dive into the kind of the topics section here. And the first thing that I have on the topics list is why an orchard with apples and pears and things, and why not the veggie market? Is there a reason why you went fruiting trees? Is that kind of a passion thing, or is it just because of the market? Or
I think the market's a little bit better. People nowadays, I think we all try to eat better, but it's easier to eat something sweet.
Sure.
So if you're selling something, it's easier to sell an apple than, in my mind, a tomato.
Sure.
I mean, he really wanted to do an apple orchard, I think, before I even came along.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on my dad's shoulders in Gays Mills. I mean, that was a big adventure for the family. Was you'd sit in the car, it felt like forever. The trees are all colored up, and we end up in Gays Mills picking apples. Mm-hmm. So it's always been a thing, but definitely.
I mean, you do have some experience, and you're doing some growing in terms of veggies out here too. Mm-hmm. Would you, if you compared the two, kind of say one's more difficult or time consuming, or took more to kind of figure out than the other?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, apples, there's a lot of knowledge that goes into that. And the bummer is if you mess up, you've done wrecked your apples for that season.
Right.
So, Other veggies are, I think, easier to grow in a way.
Sure.
But at the same time, they still take some skill set. But you got to care for the apple the whole season to make it good.
Can you talk a little bit about that? This kind of transitions into my next topic. Just the fruit tree and kind of from planting, how you get it in to plant it, and then the process of how you maintain it, prune it, and how you get it to produce.
So we order them in. We buy from multiple nurseries all over the United States. We've got a couple favorites, but they come in as a bare root form. So it's a 5-foot whip with some roots. And we get a bobcat because I don't like doing it by hand. And we drill holes in the soil. And then we go and put the roots in it and kick the dirt back over it and kind of stomp on it. But once it's in the ground, we put trellising to it. So it gets high tensile wire to hold the tree up so it supports the crop when it's bearing fruit. And that's kind of the initial planting. And then from there, the tree grows, and our goal is 3 years, and we can make fruit on that tree. And at the end of the 3 years, hopefully we're at our height, which is 12 foot, and we'll let it fruit and hopefully get a crop every season after that.
Do you have to prune it to be that height, or is that kind of
we've got just a kind of a good enough here, and we come by with a wagon, and you just cut them all the same. Basically, the top wire is at 12 feet, so let it hang over 6 inches, and you're good to go.
Awesome. And then you're pruning every year. Right?
Every single year, we do lots of pruning. We've decided now that we've done this a couple years that the big trees are not as fun as the small trees. So the big trees are going to be getting phased out eventually, and we'll just chop them down and replant with high density because pruning is a lot quicker, a lot nicer. You get nicer fruit on them. Big trees are just a pain.
What age would those be? I mean, like 6 year, 8 year?
For a standard tree?
Yeah.
For a
or
standard,
are you talking like a different kind of tree?
No, there's 3 different sizes. So you have dwarf is what he's talking about, which has to go on the high tensile wire.
I got
And then you have a semi-dwarf, which gets to be about as tall as the dwarf, but it's much wider.
Gotcha.
And then you have a standard tree, which is much taller and much wider.
So you have some of all of those.
We have some of all of them, but the standard trees is what he's talking about. So it's like the ones that you and I grew up with and all our grandparents grew up with.
Gotcha.
And eventually what he's saying is that they'll weed out because they're harder to take care of. And when you lose a tree, you lose the whole thing, and they're planted how many feet apart?
The standard trees are 25 on 20. So every 25 feet, there's a row. Every 20 foot in the row, there's a tree. And our high density is 12 on 3. So we're at 12-foot row spacing. Every 3 foot, there's a tree.
Yeah, so if you lose one of those, it's not as detrimental.
Sure. And that, I mean, is there, production-wise, is there a benefit to any of those 3?
Yeah. So the smaller the tree, the faster it makes fruit.
Yep.
So when you've got a standard tree, you could be 10 years out before you get an apple.
Yeah.
When you get a dwarf in, we're usually pulling fruit off the first year, so it doesn't fruit. And by the 3rd, we let it fruit.
Gotcha. And you get a decent amount on those.
Yeah. So technically, in that row, you could produce more apples than you would with a standard row.
So you can get more of those trees.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And what, can you just go through the different, I know there are a ton of varieties out there. You don't have to go through all the varieties, but you have apples, and what are the others? You said some pears, and what else do you have out there?
Apples and pears in the orchard. Cherries, yeah, we get cherries too.
Okay. And are the pears producing to a point where you're getting an abundance? Same with the cherries? Or
yeah, we've got the following for our pears. So when we pick pears, we'll pick everything we can, but we'll sell out of them for sure by the end of the season. So we've currently added some new pears last year in hopes to have more of a early season to late season pears instead of just it's pear weekend and there they go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there a specific variety that you guys kind of target, or
I like
varieties?
The Bartlett pears,
Okay.
and that's one of the varieties that we have, and that's one of the most popular varieties that everybody comes back for.
Sure.
I mean, we have people on a weekly thing or 2 or 3 times a week coming in. Do you still have pears? Do you still have pears?
Cool.
So for varieties of apples, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of varieties, but we only carry 50 of them.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we don't do is we don't carry a lot of the traditional varieties. I mean, we do have Cortland and that, but a lot of people want Macintosh.
Mm-hmm.
We carry kind of hybrids of the Macintosh. And so you have like a Snappy Mac, which is a different apple mixed with a Macintosh, but so it's just like a typical Macintosh, but yet it's crunchier.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people don't like that they get soft and kind of mealy.
Sure.
So we tried to pick out varieties that we thought people would like a lot more.
Sure.
And we try to encourage our customers to come in and try different apples. And we do have that a lot, that they come in, well, I never would have thought to try that. And I did, so I really like it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that the orchard has grown over a handful of years
Mm-hmm.
significantly. I'm just curious how that kind of planning process started and how it's kind of evolved. Did you start thinking you're going to do 50 varieties of apples, or were you like, all right, let's see if we can get three varieties in, and then
we kind of started with the first year we put in 500 trees and we really didn't have a plan. And
why don't you tell them what your plan was?
my plan was to plant them and then come back and try to make some money down the road. But the reality is we put them in the ground. You know, a week later the deer came by and ate all the buds off them. And then, a month later we put in 3,800 feet of deer fence. And at that point, the orchard itself was fenced.
sure.
So the idea was fill it, right? We've already paid for the deer fence. Let's fill it up with trees. And the second, after that first batch of trees went in, they had a sale on some dwarf stuff, and we tried it, and we actually got an apple the first year. Didn't know anything about it. Funny looking apple. It was called a Pristine, and we finally picked one off the tree, brought it home, and cut it up, and we all thought that was the best apple we've ever eaten. And then it was kind of like, if we're going to do this, it's going to take every penny we got for a long, long time. So we kind of committed, and next thing you know, the next year 500 trees showed up, and another 500 trees, and every year it seems to be 500-600 trees, something like that.
So that's kind of, so how do you plan that out? You try to keep varieties together, I'm assuming, so you can.
No, we kind of have them spread out only because it depends on what we can get. We're a small based orchard. So in order to get apples, you have to order 3 years out?
Yeah.
2 years out?
Oh, okay.
And so then usually we're calling and saying, what do you have extra that's in stock?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're getting some of those trees if it's a variety we want.
Sure.
And so, like when it comes to Honeycrisp, we learned we had to put way more Honeycrisp in because everybody wants that apple. And so it's like we got Honeycrisp here, we got Honeycrisp there, we got Honeycrisp down here. So, they come in, they get a highlighted map, and then you just sit there and say, well, go to these rows for the Honeycrisp.
Sure.
I said, you may have other roads that aren't highlighted. I'll say they're picked out, or we're not picking them yet.
Sure. And then, so to go into that a little bit, is the majority of the operation you pick, or are you trying to pick a lot on your own?
Half and half.
Yeah, as of now, I would say 80% is probably you pick at least. Obviously, we pick for cider and donuts and all that kind of stuff, but the reality is most of the apples are picked by the customers.
We spend our time picking almost every day.
Yeah.
Because we have, in the store, we carry pre-picked apples.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll try to estimate what we're going to need, pick that, set them out on the tables, and then whatever we're out of, we have to go and pick after that day's of being open.
Sure.
Right. And do you have any regular like wholesale accounts? Are you providing to anybody?
Not
Maybe
right
in the
now.
future that might be an option now with the orchard, getting more mature, producing more fruit. It should crank out, 7,500 bushels of apples,
Mm-hmm.
which is far more than we'll ever go through here.
Sure.
But at that point, at that time, then maybe we could start doing some local grocery stores or that kind of thing.
Sure. So just in terms of the business, with roughly 80% you pick apples, can you go through the different kind of things that you sell? So you pick, and I know you mentioned the pumpkins and kind of the experience with like the cornmaze and things. The food I would kind of categorize as one. The products in this kind of shop area. Is there like a heavy lifter, or apples kind of your heavy lifter? That's kind of the
I mean, the apples
bulk of
get the
income.
customer to the farm.
Sure.
That's I shouldn't say that donuts do too, believe it or not, but majority of, you come in, your family's coming for a fun day. You're going to get some apples, but once you're here, then it's the opportunity to obviously sell the customer anything we possibly can.
Sure.
So, outside we run a lot of squashes. We do a pick your own veggie garden, which is tomatoes and peppers and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of mums. So we run about 600 mums a year. But every item you add is, extra. So definitely they come for the apples, but hopefully they leave with a couple bags of goodies.
We do the corn maze. We open at the beginning of the season. So a lot of people are surprised by that, but we have it open.
Sure.
So you can go through it. We do usually.
Is that not typical? Do most orchards kind of?
I don't think it's atypical. I think that people just don't think about it. They're like thinking, oh, the corn needs to be brown to go through a corn maze, where it's green right now still. So we have that going. Last year was the first year that we planted sunflowers and everything. And then in store, we try to stick to local to Wisconsin.
Okay.
So all of our stuff is based in Wisconsin that we try to carry.
Mm-hmm.
And then we make some stuff on our own, but we can't make it all.
Sure.
So we do offer different types of jams and jellies. And then maple syrup is close by. They're the next road over. And then all the products that are on that side of the store, which are like the skin care, like goat milk soap and goat milk lotion, I make all of those.
Awesome.
And so it's all in the store is pretty much local. And then with the food trailer, we try to do everything that we possibly can with our apples, because we know that it's important to people to have it from this farm.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit to transition about kind of the operations? Do you have like full-time hired people year round, or part-time just during season?
No, we're really, for the most part, the farm's run with obviously Jennifer and I, and then my parents are in the donut trailer. As of other workers, I've got a guy that picks for me a lot and helps me prune, but nobody's a full-time employee. And then we've got a handful of other girls that come out and help with odd jobs here and there. But definitely nobody's putting in that many hours. If I can get 20 hours a week out of all the people together, that'd be great.
Sure.
But come out and pick for 4 hours, that's a huge thing.
Sure.
Right,
So-
come out and pick apples up off the ground. That's a huge thing too.
Yeah.
Because one thing that comes with apple orchards that people don't realize is yellow jackets.
Yeah.
And they're going to be at any orchard that you visit. And they all say the bees. Well, you have bees. The bees don't want the fruit. They want pollen.
Sure.
So it's the yellow jackets that want the fruit. And it's always a problem every year, but you're going to have apples on the ground no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that we can get picked up, the better it is.
Sure. In terms of just like the yellow jacket population, or just the look, or both?
Well, both. We like it to be picked up, but that's something that we're always constantly definitely behind on. And I mean, when two of us are running this, he has a full-time job on top of it. And then two people running the donut trailer, we don't have the extra hands to go out and work continuously during the season to pick up apples. And that's when you have apples on the ground.
Yeah. And you mentioned from August to sometime in November in terms of your operations. I think on the website it said Wednesday to Sunday.
We're open Wednesday to Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then on Mondays and Tuesdays, we kind of limited the field trips to be Mondays and Tuesdays.
Oh, cool.
So on those 2 days, I'm here and I'm running as many field trips as I can in and out. So, but we do have other groups that, like we have the Boy Scouts that come every year, but they come after we close for the day, and then they're doing the cornmaze and having a fire and just hanging out. We do some promotional stuff for businesses.
Yeah.
We did Remax last year, so they had a customer appreciation day. Every weekend we try to have food trucks from around the area that's here on Saturday and Sunday. So people are really getting interested. They'll look it up, like, what food trucks are you having? Because we want to know, if it's one that we really like. And that, so, Saturdays and Sundays are very, very busy here.
Mm-hmm.
But during the week, it's kind of low key.
Sure. And I think you've dipped into some of the markets, like the farmers markets. Is that more for exposure, marketing, or trying to push product? Or?
In the beginning, it was both. Now it's just do we have time to do it?
Sure.
And sadly, the answer is no. We just don't have the time to go to the farmers market.
We would love to.
Maybe when the children get a little older, we can send them with a pickup full of apples. But right now, it's we try to do Belleville a couple times. But once the season starts here, there's no way we're leaving with apples to go do a farmer's market.
I mean, we did sunflowers last year because that was our first year doing them. So then we wanted to kind of promote that, and Belleville kind of knows us.
Yeah.
And then we also took apple cider donuts, which of course were like hotcakes. So
that's on a weekday, right? It's like a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we used to do a lot more farmers markets.
Yeah.
But we just can't. We don't have the people to send to them.
Sure. The sunflowers, are you just selling them as like cut flower?
We tried to take them to the farmer's market, and I ended up giving them all away.
Yeah.
I think I sold one.
Yeah.
Like, great, 2 acres of sunflowers, I made $1.
But it was a lot of like you put it on
cool.
you put it on your Facebook, any
good.
promotional Instagram, all of that, and it's like, well, some person may not have saw it. Oh, I didn't realize that you did it because they're just like Alpine Ridge and may just scroll past it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to get word of mouth out
For sure.
than you think it is.
Yeah, for sure.
So about stuff, but now like our regular customers are like, hey, you got sunflowers, we'll come out and do that. And I think last year our timing was
Terrible.
Yeah, our timing was terrible because it was a couple weeks before we even opened.
Right.
And then it was almost like, okay, sunflowers are done, and now we're open.
Yeah.
So this didn't last very long.
Yeah. Can we go into a little bit of the crop planting and kind of, you mentioned the rotation. So is that primarily for like pest, soil?
Yeah,
health?
so pumpkins, curbits, so any kind of watermelon, cucumbers, that kind of thing. The general rule of thumb is you want to plant them every 4 years. So they can get a lot, like anything, can get a lot of fungus and bad stuff. Pumpkins have the ability to produce some stuff in the soil that it lasts like forever, and you just get terrible yields, and you're kind of done growing pumpkins there. So we try to rotate with a 4-year rotation just on the pumpkin field. Are
you rotating other stuff too, or?
I mean, we'll do little stuff, nothing nothing real major. The pumpkins are the issue. So if we plant those, the next year it'll be cornmaze. Then we've done, throw sunflowers into the mix now. So that's another rotation. And if it can be corn twice, that's fine too.
Sure.
But that's our plan going forward, is now to rotate every 4 years.
Cool. And all of that stuff, I mean, the pumpkins, I guess, is the squash. Are those you pick?
Yeah. So pumpkins are you pick, squash are you pick, but we do bring a ton of that up for the building for the customers that don't want to pick. And now we'll be probably acquiring some fields not far from here. And that'll be part of the rotation, is we'll bring pumpkins from our other fields up to the building, so that we can have the rotation here on the.
We'll still have to
on the
pick
farm.
your own patch.
Oh, for sure.
Because there's people that still want to do that. We don't want to cut out, pick your own, or pre-picked. So.
And you mentioned the veggies also. Pick your own veggie. How does that? I guess it's hard for me to just growing our own kind of. We do flowers and veggies on our farm. But we don't have people come out. I mean, that experience is a whole nother experience that you kind of have to be prepared for.
Yep.
And I put so much time and energy into the crop. It'd be so hard for me to watch people go out there and
it's
quote unquote destroy it.
It's hard to get people to do it, believe it or not.
Sure.
And that's kind of the thing, when you comparing veggies to apples or fruit, like. We opened a pick your own veggie thing. I think we put in maybe 1,000 plants, and we've got a water wheel and a bed mulcher. So caring for 1,000 plants is not as bad as you think.
Sure.
But then trying to get a customer to come out and buy vegetables, and then they got to pick them, which the people that were into it thought it was great.
Yeah.
But you'd have 2 customers instead of 200 customers.
Sure.
So it really kind of after the first year it changed. And now I would say we produce a lot of peppers, a lot of tomatoes, and cucumbers.
That's about it. Kind of those 3 staples.
Because when the broccoli was ready, it wasn't really efficient to drive out to Brooklyn to get a one thing of broccoli.
Sure.
But once you get into tomato season, then you can make stuff. So then we get into bigger quantities, bushels of tomatoes, and
we have a few customers that come out that
do a lot of
just
canning.
come out and pick on the tomatoes.
Sure.
And it's like you would rather see them go than sit there and rot.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we'll pick what we need, but he's always been a person to plant 2 times the amount of plants that we need. So
like to impress.
right, you can't just put in 50 tomato plants. You got to put in 100.
Right.
So
looks a lot cooler.
yeah.
Look at all those tomatoes.
Right, and then you just sit there and watch them rot.
We also have a guest in the room here too. You want to introduce yourself? No?
This is Asher Leffren.
Asher, it's been said that you do a good job in the pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
What is the hardest part with the customers when they're in the pumpkin patch? That requires your work.
Probably the hardest part is them not taking the pumpkin that you want them to take.
And finding a different one.
Right. He's highly suggestive, but it's probably you go out there with your clippers and you clip a lot of the pumpkins for them, and then sometimes you'll pick them up and put them in their wagons.
Oh, how? Yeah, I was just going to ask, how do they get pumpkins that are huge back to the?
Well, if they have if they have a lot, they usually ask Mom or me for a massive wagon that you hook on.
Uh-huh.
Then we just put them in the wagon, and we just take them to the car, to their cars.
Deliver it right to their car.
Right.
Do they pay for just one pumpkin costs $2, or is it? How do they pay for it?
They have to weigh it.
Oh, so you go by weight.
Yeah, we only have 4 categories. So we do 0 to 10 is $2, 11 to 20 is $4. So we consider us as one of the cheapest in the area for pumpkins.
In some of the places you go, you pay weight.
You pay per poundage.
$50 for.
I mean, I remember going and paying $40 for a pumpkin, and I'm like, never again.
Yeah.
But as a family of 5, you know, we are like, no, we're not doing that to people.
Yeah.
And we have, you know, this is another thing where he's like, I don't know if we're going to have enough pumpkin, and we end up with 2,000 more pumpkins than we need. So, you know, putting in 10,000 pumpkin seeds isn't enough, right?
It also looks cool.
I think you do.
I know.
What did I figure? 30 or no, 40,000 seeds. I think we put in about.
Yeah.
So you got, I mean, you obviously have irrigation going on the farm. Do you have irrigation to the orchard or no?
No. Trees we've not, maybe down the road. But on a hot season, I've been known to, you know, get on the 4-wheeler and take a load of water out.
Sure.
And take another and another and another. But pumpkins, they're fully irrigated, so those are pretty easy to maintain.
Yeah.
But nothing on the trees.
Gotcha. Anything else about the farm that we didn't really talk about or topic-wise that you want to share? Or go ahead, Asher. What do you got?
We do rides, right?
Wagon ride.
Yeah, wagon rides.
Oh, cool.
When we have enough people around, we do tractor rides.
Awesome.
So, and that actually goes through our woods. So you kind of get to go the outside of the orchard, and then it goes into the woods. It takes what, about 20 minutes?
20, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Who's driving the tractor, Asher?
No, he's not allowed to do that yet. We do scare a lot of people because he is out there with the Cub Cadet, and he is out there with the huge clippers, you know, and he has been for years. So a lot of people can't believe we let him do that, but he's very good about it. But no.
Who's driving the I mean, is that just other family help?
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be. If I get time, I like to drive,
Sure.
but we don't always have time to drive, so I've got another guy that helps out. We'll drive occasionally if we need him.
Yeah. So a lot of times the tractor rides are only on weekends.
Gotcha. So in the kind of development of the property here, the orchard, and kind of this whole experience, because it's awesome out here, and we definitely come out with the family at least once or twice every season, and just love it. It's right down the road from us, which is cool too, and easy. Have there been any really difficult parts to making it work other than just kind of working so much, or were there like hang-ups with like the county or the city or like
Yeah, we don't want to go there.
We don't want to go there.
We're technically in Dane County,
Okay.
which is different because across the street is Greene County.
Yeah, which is where we are.
Yeah.
Different.
And Dane
ordinances
County, we feel, is a lot more stricter
things. Sure.
about
They're
things.
special.
They're special, yes, they are.
Because you got to get permit. I mean, your food. I mean,
Yeah,
you have bathrooms out here too?
I would say that's
get
been
porta
a
potties.
very bummer of a thing is just the county.
How
Yeah.
prohibiting it is.
Zoning is, the bummer is nobody knows their job, if you'd ask me. So you go to all these people for what do I need to do, and nobody can give you an answer. And then you slowly start to put the puzzle together and find out that, yeah, nobody knows, but
Sure.
this is what you got to do. You got to go here first.
But they have no problem coming out and giving you fines if you don't do something right, you know. Like our sign. I mean, the day we put our sign in, we were going to have it closer to the road. And the guy literally showed up with a tape measure and said it had to be 40
inches.
feet from the road.
Yep. There's a thick book of rules to put a sign. I said, sir, there's been a sign on this driveway for 30 years.
Mhm.
Well, technically you can't have those. Okay, what can we have? So we moved it. Now it sits way off the road, so I had to clear the whole ditch out so you could see the sign before you drove past the place.
Mhm.
But definitely a struggle with
Those types of things.
Yeah.
The red tape.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you're under surveillance all the time with them.
Which is kind of crazy because you would think they would want to support,
Right.
It's not like you're trying to do this crazy devious operation out
No.
here. You're trying to bring community together and have a family style experience and enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah.
In a
And I think with
Southern
Oregon and
Wisconsin
Brooklyn,
feel.
like, you know, if you think about all the different things that are in this community
Mhm.
and what everybody offers, it's like you don't even have to go out of a 20-mile
Right.
radius.
We've got so much here.
Right.
Yeah,
We
which is
have
cool.
so much. You can do everything that you want to do.
Mhm.
So you think that they would support it more.
Yeah. the last piece that we haven't really dove into yet are kind of dealing with the animals you have on the farm. I think that's another attraction you have. Can you just go through what the animals are and kind of, I mean, that's a whole nother caretaking working hours, and who kind of takes the lead on that?
That's
Ooh,
usually.
we got another guest speaker. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Aspen. I'm the middle child and the best, obviously. So, yeah. So we have a lots of goats.
Cool.
And I forgot the certain type of goat breed we have, but we only have
Nigerian dwarf.
Nigerian dwarf.
Cool.
So
How many goats do you have?
6.
6 of them.
We have decreased, so we had pygmies and Nigerians.
Uh-huh.
And this year we really wanted to go with just Nigerians. And so we got rid of all of our pygmies, which we got rid of 12 goats.
Wow.
And that, so now we're down to just 6 goats, strictly Nigerian.
And are those Nigerians better for caretaking or for visitors, or why did you switch and just stick to Nigerians instead of the pygmies?
Well, they were like kind of like the same size. So when people asked, "Oh, what type of breed were they?" then we would have to explain they're like 2 type of breeds, and then they were like, and then they would ask like what type of goats they would be, and we'd be like, "Oh, well, some are these type and ones are these types too." So that's why we stick with one of them. So yeah.
It's just easier kind of to explain. Now you just have
Yeah.
all Nigerian dwarfs.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, so between the 2, Nigerians are a little bit smaller, and people like the small goats
Sure.
for petting. We did have some Alpines at one time, and
Those are bigger, aren't they?
they're big.
Yeah.
So he really loved them. You know, him and our one Lollipop had a real good friendship going. So, but they kind of went through a lot of fences. So having the smaller goats is a little bit preferable when you got fences that you don't want taken down.
Yeah.
Because really to keep a goat in is impossible.
Sure.
Um,
And are you guys like breeding them here too, or that's cool?
So that's how we ended up with so many, and we're like, we really need to decrease the numbers, and that's where we're like, we're just going to stick to the Nigerians.
Gotcha.
Plus, they have more variations in color.
Cool. Just so that they look
Yeah.
nicer,
They just
different.
everybody's like,
differentiated.
oh, I like that color. I like that color. You know.
Cool. Anything else other than goats on the farm that you have?
We have chickens
Cool.
that we raise a lot, and sometimes I think some of them we hatched before. And we have one duck. His name's Crackers, and I raised him. He's the best. And we also have banthams, which are like a small type of chicken. My sister owns all of them.
Cool. And are the chickens like? Do people come pet the chickens too, or is it just to have chickens kind of run around?
We mostly have them free roaming, but during season we have them tendency to lock them up because we have the garden.
Sure.
And they will peck everything in that garden to pieces.
Sure.
Yeah. So it kind of sucks that they have to be locked up because normally the other part of the year they're free ranging.
Yeah.
And that, but sometimes Anala, our oldest, will go out and get her bantams out and people will pet them.
That's cool.
So
How many bantams?
I think we have 8.
And how many chickens?
Like 20. Yeah. We usually vary.
Yeah.
So, and then somehow last year someone talked me into ordering button quail. And so
Are the quail eggs like smaller?
they're about the size of a penny.
Peanut M&M.
Yeah,
Okay.
peanut M&M. So yeah, we raised those. So you never know what you're gonna find when you come because a lot of times, you know, like we had the button quail last fall that were in here getting raised, and people were coming in on a weekly basis to see if they were going to be hatching.
That's cool.
And then one of her bantams ended up having babies that we didn't know was going to happen, and so all of a sudden we have chicks inside, and so it's really like a zoo around here.
It's
You
exciting.
never know what we're going to have.
And what would you say your favorite out of all of the animals is?
Most likely the goats,
Yeah.
because I don't talk to Knowles Anthems as much as I do to them. And the chickens, they're on their own there, you know.
Yeah.
So I just talk to the goats, and I love my goats.
Do they talk back to you?
Yeah, I can talk goat.
Really?
I don't know if I'm allowed to do that right now, but I can.
Well, how about we just say, if whoever's listening to this can come out and listen to you talk to your goats when they come out and visit.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, mine would probably be maybe chicken.
The chicken?
Chickens can be messy too.
Yeah.
Brandon, you got a favorite animal?
It's definitely not the
Well,
goats.
I had to get rid of them. They were the pigs, but
Yeah.
they're my favorite animals.
Yeah.
And all of us other
Delicious.
people did not like the pigs.
Delicious.
Pigs are fun.
But we did have a lot of people do selfies with the pigs.
Oh yeah,
They got personality. We've done a couple rounds of pigs, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're
I
just
just didn't like going in and feeding them because they
Yeah.
kind of like act like they're gonna
aggressive.
maul you down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so our last section is the rapid fire question section. I have 5 questions here. I will shoot the question, and then you can give me one word or short answer responses to the questions.
Okay.
Ready to rock?
Yeah.
All right, number 1, something on the farm that you're really proud of or super happy with.
We're all sitting here like, oh,
Nothing.
everything.
Everything.
Yeah, that's hard to pinpoint. Something.
Is there one project where you just like feel really good that the way it turned out or how you approached it or?
I mean, I would say the orchard.
Yeah. Although I'm really proud of my signs.
Yeah.
So I painted a bunch of signs that you can put your face in,
Oh, cool.
and then
Like the cornmaze one?
Yep.
yeah.
Cool.
So I did a bunch of those last year, and I think people really like that as photo opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. Great. All right, number 2, a tool or piece of equipment that you couldn't go without in your operation.
And we don't own it.
What is it?
Bobcat.
Yeah. We really need a bobcat
Yeah.
because we end up needing to do so many things, and we end up renting it.
Yeah.
You need a spray tractor. We don't own that.
Gotcha. What do you take the wagon rides on? You have a tractor?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just not
It's just a different tractor.
implements.
Everybody needs lots of tractors.
He has, yeah.
We've
he
got a
has
spray
lots of
tractor, but we
old
want a
tractors.
cab spray tractor
Yeah.
with air conditioning and heat.
hmm
Number 3, one thing you learned that you wish you would have known earlier in the journey.
Yours should probably be that you're not just going to let the trees grow and come back in 10 years.
Yeah, you're not just going to put it in the ground and
Yeah.
make some
Yeah.
money. It takes a ton of care.
I don't know.
I remember at one point we had a conversation when we first met that you were dealing with a fungus issue in the
Mhm.
soil and how that
Yep.
just like blew your mind at how
Yeah.
big of a pain it was.
Yeah.
Well, can you talk a little bit about that and how you
Um,
kind of came to discover that?
Yeah, it's just, the trees just don't live. You got to care for them. And we had a really rainy season, and it created some fungus in the roots. And, we didn't know what we were looking at. Years later, it was like, dang, what are we going to do? So more care to the trees, more care. And,
We're still treating them.
we're
We're still
still,
losing trees.
having
to
issues, but not catastrophic
Sure.
issues.
I think we learn something every year that we didn't know the previous year. And that there's always new things, and you're constantly learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. We've spent the first 4 or 5 years trying to figure it out, and as soon as you think you have it figured out, it's like the
Yeah,
next
you
year is
don't.
totally different.
You don't.
So
We had leaf hoppers this year on the mums. So I actually sprayed the mums, which I've never done ever.
Yeah.
But, it's a new thing.
Right.
Think you're good, and then all of a sudden you're like, what the hell is that?
Right.
Oh, Jesus, something else.
Right. All right, number 4. A mentor or publication or resource that's your go-to for information when you're doing kind of like research stuff or you're trying to figure out
YouTube.
something. YouTube. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
We do go to an apple conference every year where we learn a lot of stuff, though.
Awesome.
So that's every January. They have the Wisconsin Growers Association. And so then it's, you don't have just apples. You have grapes, you have berries, you have vegetables. Now they have Christmas trees in there too.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn about different things every single year. And there's who's the one from the University of Wisconsin?
Amanda?
Yeah. She comes every year and tries to give the updates on what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like a couple of years ago, there was, where a lot of orchards didn't have any apples.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what caused that?
Oh, cool. So just like
Yeah.
new information. That's
New
kinda
information,
out there in the
new
state.
pests that they're dealing with,
Sure.
new fungus, new whatever.
Cool.
I think she's a top one to go to too.
Awesome. All right. Question number 5 is the top 2 or 3 apple varieties in your opinion, and why?
Honeycrisp, because that's all people know.
It sells.
Yeah, I mean, it's the name and everybody wants it. And Zestar is our next one. Because Zestar is a lot like a Honeycrisp, but it's earlier than Honeycrisp. So you can almost have 2 Honeycrisp seasons.
Mm.
What's our other one?
My new favorite is Crimson Topaz.
Yeah, that one's
It's
really
a brand
good.
new apple to the farm. This last year was the first year it made fruit. The fruit is ugly, and it's real waxy feeling on the outside. And you're thinking this is going to be a terrible apple, and you bite into it, and you have the most flavorful, juicy, crispy apple, and you're going, my God, I would have never guessed.
Ugly in what way?
They're just kind of like a
Very-
flatter.
Yeah.
They're
Oh,
not
gotcha.
so perfectly
Well,
round.
They're their texture on the outside, their flesh is just kind of
It's kind of
weird and bumpy.
a
And
little bit of russeting.
so everybody comes in and they want perfect apples.
Yeah.
If you have one flawed apple in the bag, somebody's going to complain about it. But so this one, we're trying to encourage people to try because it's really, really good. But people just bypass it because it doesn't look nice.
Yeah. Crimson Topaz.
Mhm.
Yes.
That was question 5, but this transition's great into something that I did want to learn a little bit more about. You mentioned the early season versus a later Honeycrisp. Can you talk a little bit about how that, just different varieties, and I'm guessing that goes into the planning too. Some are like early and some go later.
We have technically 3 seasons. So we have early season, mid season, and late season.
Okay.
So you're going to have early season, which starts, our earliest one we pick in July.
Mm-hmm.
But that one never gets sold really because it goes into all of our cider. And then we go early season for us is when we open. So mid-August. And then you got mid-season, which is usually middle of September into the beginning part of October. And then you got late season, which are going to be like, a lot of people love Granny Smith for baking. That's going to be your late season apple. Pink Lady.
So you're, I'm guessing, in the varieties, when you're kind of laid that all out, you're trying to target a good amount for each one of those seasons.
Right.
Yeah. We probably have, at any one time when you come out, there should be at least 10 varieties ready.
Sure.
And then out of those varieties, whether they're early, middle, or late, each variety itself has, in my mind, an early season and a late season of just that apple. So everything starts out harder and crunchier, and it ends up getting sweeter and softer. So Portlands are notorious for hanging for months. You want a hard, tart apple, you're going to get it in early September. You want that sweet Portland for pie, you want to get it in October.
Gotcha. Would you say Honeycrisp are your biggest targeted apple?
I think our customers that are coming back every year are coming for different apples
Sure.
than the Honeycrisp.
Ones that they've kind of discovered here.
Yeah, like a lot of people like the Zestar.
Yeah.
So they're going to come early in the season. We have a lot of people that like the Macintoshes, so they got to come, any Macintosh that we have mixed. Snappy Mac is probably our biggest Macintosh for being sold. So they're going to come when they're available. And then, of course, like Pink Lady, that's the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, people who are coming that are new, they want the Honeycrisp.
Sure.
Or you have your really stubborn people that only want Honeycrisp. And so we do have people that walk out the door because we don't have them.
Yeah. Which, whatever. I mean, you're not going to be able to please everybody.
No. But yeah, Honeycrisps are always the biggest seller, and it's just because of the name.
Gotcha.
And I mean, the taste too, but we get asked that question every year. What's like a Honeycrisp?
Nothing.
Nothing. We're going to tell you that. Nothing.
Yeah. Great. Before we close up and kind of wrap up here, are there any future things kind of on the docket that you're super fired up about, either for this upcoming season or into the future even further?
Yeah.
Quitting your full-time job, I'm guessing, is on.
That'd be great. That's not going to happen. We actually just put in a vineyard a year ago. So this will be our second year growing that, which has some opportunities down the road to change the way we do business. And then we also added raspberries last year. So we're hoping to do a pick your own raspberry patch this year. And we're a few years out on the grapes, but it'll kind of change the dynamics of the business.
Sure. And then like more juice.
Well, right now we have Bricks Cider, which is in Mapora. They come and they gather our apples and then they turn it into hard cider just from our apples. So you'll see during the season that we have Alpine Ridge Orchard hard cider.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're hoping to combine and get some type of wine made
Sure.
that we can have that's ours too.
Cool. Do you guys have a license out here?
For the cider, we do.
Yeah.
For wine, we do not yet. It can be a thing.
Sure.
But we can't pick until they're 3 years.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's down the road.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's exciting. Anything else?
There's lots of things we want to do.
Yeah.
In a bobcat.
Yeah, with the bobcat. I mean, we want a barn.
Yeah.
So you're going to have
You mentioned
more of that. I would love to have a venue place, you know, that we can have weddings or business things. We do have people that call and ask every year. We get at least 3 phone calls on, hey, do you have a space we can rent to hold our business stuff?
You just don't have the space.
We don't have that. Well, we have the space, we just don't have
Facility.
the income to do that.
Sure.
So everything goes back into the orchard.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for having me out. This is awesome. It's really cool to kind of learn more about you two and about your orchard out here and everything you got going on. Any parting thoughts, final words to share out as we wrap up? Words of wisdom?
Why are you looking at me? No, just come out and have fun. I mean, we're pretty laid back, you know, get to know us a little and you'll realize that it is a family-owned business and we're here to support families.
Yeah.
And have them come out and do other things.
Mm-hmm.
So come out, hang out. I mean, we have mom groups that come out and meet out here and their kids are in the sandbox in the play area, you know, for 2 or 3 hours and that's all they do.
That's awesome. Kiddos, anything else to add?
I want a better playground and I want corn pit.
What's a corn pit?
It's like a sandbox, but it's just filled with corn. I like the feeling of it. And I do very much want a better playground.
What's wrong with the playground now? Just too small?
Nothing. I just wish it could be bigger and there should be some parkour things there too. You know?
Parkour course out here?
Yeah, sure.
This fall?
Yeah, we do try to. Yeah, we don't even know. Like we do try to add on every year to the playground. Yeah, something new. So
Is the corn pit going to be this year?
I'm hoping a big slide or a merry-go-round.
yeah, something. Really?
Yeah.
We'll have to discuss.
Well, cool. Well, thanks again. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode and got a few takeaways from it. Let us know if there's a small-scale farm operation you know of that could be a good fit for our podcast. Thanks for being part of our journey. Till next time, peace out.